There's a comment I read once. It was on a foreign channel. I think it was the Economic Invincibility channel. I even mentioned this comment during a hangout with Fox, and it's basically an exercise about what marriage is nowadays. For the average guy, for a man who's like at most a 6 or below a 6, and basically the guy in the comment, he said that the man, an average guy at most a 6, nowadays marriage for him is basically being cuckolded. It's automatic cuckoldry, and the media, the current culture, they support this. Let's go, he wrote in his comment, right there in the exercise, saying that women these days, they're all wanting to get married around that time, from 30 to 35, All after that point, not from their 20s, right? It's very rare to find one between 25 and 30 who actually wants to get married. And usually they're aware that they're still young, so if they're out there trying to land a rich guy, the guy has to be pretty well off to convince her to get married. And we already know what comes from that, right? Ticking time bomb, divorce clock starts ticking, and then... But this thing about getting married between 25 and 30, that's a Generation X thing. That's over now. Generation Y is all women over 30, and there are even some crazy ones like 35 saying they want to have kids. But anyway, getting back to the comment. So the guy said this in the exercise he did in the comment, saying, every man who gets married these days, an average modern guy, his reward, his prize in society for being a responsible guy is a woman over 30 who already has, 20, 30, or even more guys in her past. So automatically, by all definitions, the guy is a cuck. He's a cuck. He got cucked by all those other guys who came before and didn't pay the full price for access to this woman. He's paying the full price, the complete price for access to this woman, but a bunch of guys already took a bite before him. That's basically the idea. Like, the guy, it's like going to a dealership, buying a brand new car, and the car already has 20,000 miles on it, Already there, already has mileage on it. You get it? What the? What's up with that? And okay, there might be some situations a guy will run into. A woman who had, let's say a conservative one, more reserved, who had like 10 guys in her past. Basically, that kind of woman who pretty much only had boyfriends, right? Even so, she had 10 before, And maybe even she, by comparison, which is basically, how does female self-esteem work? Women are really competitive with each other, right? Basically, their self-esteem, their ego, feeds off putting other women down, That's why you often see some women, more conservative ones, talking about others like, oh, I'm not like that other one over there. So again, just like the one who's between 25 and 30, the one who has about 10 guys in her past, she's going to want a higher price, she's going to want a bigger profit from marriage, right? She's going to go into gold digger mode too. But in general, if you take the average guy who's marrying a girl between 30 and 35, you can be sure, man, she's got at least about 20 guys in her past, minimum. If the girl is more easygoing, more into partying, went to college while she was single, you can bet she's got 30 or 40 guys in her history. So there's no way around it, the guy's a cuck. The guy is automatically a cuck. That's if the woman doesn't still have in her circle of friends and acquaintances some of those guys she was involved with and still keeps in touch with. The comparison the guy made in the comment was this. The guy is marrying the girl, and at the wedding, at the ceremony, among the guests, there's one of her exes. You get what I mean? Maybe even a guy she had a casual fling with that the husband doesn't even know about. So tell me, is it worth it? That reward? The guy is paying full price for a used car that's already got a busted up chassis. Basically, marriage for the average modern man these days is pretty much like this. Imagine you walk into a restaurant and the sign doesn't say if it's a la carte, buffet, or anything. It just says right there, lunch, $25. It's not cheap, But then you get there, you sit at the table, you look around, and there's no buffet, no menu anywhere. The waiter just comes over and puts a plate on your table. A plate where, at least half the food is alright. And by the way, I'm not saying here that men should just go around hunting. The little unicorn, right? Trying to find that 1 in a million Maria, the exception, thinking she's young and that he's safe. Because look, the guy's not safe. You have to understand, there's this whole illegal political sphere giving women a series of negative incentives to sacrifice the relationship, to sacrifice the man. And not just that, today's culture is one that promotes promiscuity, to the point where even some famous people say that women should have the right to cheat. So, for those who think they're gonna find that 1 in a million Maria, marry a young woman, and think they're in the clear, remember this. There was a video by Third Flinging Monkey, though I still can't remember the title, in which he talked about those guys from the manosphere who say, no, if you marry a girl who's at most 20 years old, maybe just a bit over 20, who was your girlfriend in high school, who was a virgin, or only had 1 or 2 boyfriends before, then you're safe. And then the torturing. Monkey tore this idea apart in his video, and in the end, he said the following. Look, for those of you watching this video, how many of you actually married a girl in that situation? And also didn't go through a divorce or get cheated on? And that comment section was just a string, man. It was nothing but a series of horror stories. So it's not a micro issue. You can't just fix things on an individual level and think you're safe. The problem is macro, man. It's a social problem, a collective problem. And for collective problems, individual solutions aren't enough. You have to address the collective, you have to deal with politics, you have to deal with the legal sphere, and you have to deal with culture and society. And for the people who are going to say, oh, but Hakan, you're being hypocritical because you're saying that men can have multiple partners, men can be promiscuous, but women can't. That's hypocrisy, that's wrong, that's inequality. Well, have I ever defended equality here on the channel? Here's the thing. The point is that men get into relationships, and let's put it in quotes, they love in a way that's completely different from women. What did I say about marriage? Marriage is a sacrifice for men, but for women it's a benefit. You can already see the difference in the dynamic. And here's the thing. A woman with multiple sexual partners, with a history of promiscuity, that affects her negatively. She loses her ability to form a bond with just one man, and to be faithful, you know? If she already has a history of promiscuity, it's easy for her to get things going again at any moment, just like that. Not to mention the amount of research showing that these women become toxic, they end up with emotional problems. They become... I wouldn't say they're bipolar or anything like that, but there's a high incidence of these women having depression issues, especially when they stay single for a long time after a period of extreme promiscuity. On the other hand, if you look at the male side, a guy who has a longer history of partners becomes more secure, more confident, and that's something that attracts women. That's something that helps maintain a relationship with her. In short, that's something that doesn't benefit. Only the man benefits. It benefits both the man and the woman. And for anyone who says, no, but then that will make the man want to cheat or leave the relationship, that's not necessarily true. Because as I already said in my premise, the one who invests in the relationship is the man. The one who only receives in the relationship is the woman. So the fact that the guy has a longer history of previous partners or a history of promiscuity, that doesn't change anything when he's actually in a relationship. It actually changes for the better, because he becomes more secure, more confident, and it's easier for him to deal with women and handle the relationship. She feels more secure because of that, and she benefits from it too. But the man doesn't just go around cheating for no reason or throw the relationship away, because he's the one investing in the relationship. Look, I even mentioned the history of guys who stay with a woman for the rest of their lives, even though the biggest benefit for them was only during, at most, 10 or 15 years when the woman was young. But after that, the guy ends up just taking care of her. That's why we have those stories of men in their 50s or 60s who are still married today and have mistresses. They break up with the woman, they leave her. Well, a lot of times, the woman has already reached menopause. She hasn't slept with her husband in who knows how long, months if not years, but the guy still loves her, he still cares about her. He stays with her and keeps taking care of her. He have his mistresses and all that, but that's just to fulfill another need he has. Look, when a man cheats, it doesn't necessarily mean he doesn't love his partner. He might still like his partner, he stays with his wife, keeps taking care of her, but he cheats. With women, cheating's a whole different story. When she cheats, she's jumping ship. She's already emotionally investing in another man and wants to leave, you know? That's the difference. The man invests in the relationship. The woman receives in the relationship. In fact, for anyone who's read that book by Esther Villar, The Manipulated Man, a book from the 1960s, every guy who's red pill needs to pick it up and read it. She herself talks about that time, the 1960s, when a lot of women knew their husbands had mistresses and they didn't care at all. Some even thought it was a good thing because they were already going through menopause, weren't interested in sex anymore, and they liked it because their husbands, even if the husband didn't know that she knew about the mistress, the woman knew about the mistress or mistresses, but the husband, even if he thought his wife didn't know and that everything was fine, the husband would feel guilty and start doing nice things and treating his wife better because of it. So just look at the difference, the dynamic. And then people still want to talk about equality, gender equality. Man, the sexes, they don't even operate the same way. So how can anyone expect there to be any kind of equality?